Poor people lose their houses. Who gets bailed out? The big banks and Goldman Sachs, all the rest, because they have control of the system. I would say that if we want to live in a free society, we should study economics, study Austrian economics, understand how it works, and understand why it's in the best interest of the people to believe in free markets, because that is where you get the greatest amount of prosperity and the best distribution, no matter what they tell you about how much government you need to make it a fair system. When it comes to individual liberty, such as personal habits, how you spend your life and your time, sexual lives, gambling lives, and all kinds of things that you might do personally. But it's always you that you're hurting. But there are some people who say, no, you can't do that. We want to tell you exactly what's going to make you a better person, a more moral person. So then another gang from Congress and Washington, politicians come in and say, aha, we're going to make you a better person. We're going to regulate your habits, and we're going to regulate all your lifestyle. We're going to regulate what you smoke and what you drink and everything else. And because you're not smart enough to do that. They always do that when they talk about, why do you have to have all these laws? They say, well, the people are going to do this and this and this. It's very important to have safety seatbelts and balloons and in your car, all of these things. And at the same time, especially when the government starts paying the bills, then it becomes more justifiable because now you're a ward of the state. Oh, if you ride a motorcycle and you don't have a helmet, I think it'd be a pretty good idea to wear a helmet, but I would think that people are smart enough to figure that out. But it comes in, the reason you have to wear a helmet now is because you end up in the emergency room. It might cost some more, and therefore the nanny-state sets in and you lose your personal choice. And you say, yeah, but this is only for the good things. But you know what? It can expand. It can expand not only to economic policy and your personal habits, but it will expand to your property. Where are we today with property? Yeah, we have private property rights. That's a fiction. You can't do much with your property without getting permits from the federal government, from FEMA, from the state government, from your city government, your county government, on down, and dozens of regulatory agencies. And what do? You pay a lot of taxes, so you pay rent to stay on it, and you get permission from the government when you want to do something with it. So we really have given up a lot of the principles of private property ownership. What about contracts? The government has an obligation under the Constitution to enforce contracts. Especially anything dealing with the federal government, you're supposed to enforce the contracts. Well, there's some mandates in the Constitution. One is the contract on money, monetary policy. Only gold and silver can be legal tender. Well, when they decided in the Depression to inflate wholeheartedly and steal the gold from the people, and the people were owed some gold, both privately and government-wise, they said, oh, it goes to the court just threw them out. Instead of protecting contract, they throw the contracts out. They're interfering in contracts all the time, whether it has to do with wages and prices and intervention. They're always regulating, believing that if they don't, we would have a terribly weak economy. If they didn't have us, if we didn't have our government there to take care of us, who knows, we could end up in a financial crisis. We're in a financial crisis, and it was totally predictable. If you understand or have studied anything about Austrian economics, the Austrian economists have been right on this issue. Matter of fact, this weekend was rather amazing because I was glad to see an editorial written in favor of Ludwig von Mises, who in 1912 explained all of this, and in the 1920s explained and predicted a depression coming. And all the Austrian students, economic students that he's had since there, have predicted this financial crisis that we're in today. It was inevitable. We didn't know exactly when it would come and exactly what would transpire, but you can't continue to inflate a currency and credit and not get malinvestment and too much debt that requires a correction. And what have we done about this correction? We're doing exactly what we did in the 30s, not allow it to happen. If things are going wrong and you need a correction, the best thing you can do is allow the correction to happen. So houses, we bail out the rich people, let the poor people suffer, but we're everything we're doing in Washington today is trying to stimulate housing. There's, $1.5 million houses on the market today, but we're stimulating housing. We lower the interest rates and try to give credits and try to stimulate housing. And the other thing is we won't let prices go down. But you want the prices to go down. Maybe there was a poor person out there that saved money instead of gambling in the stock market and then losing. So you want the prices to go down. That's politically unacceptable. They won't allow it. Up until 1921, even though we did have the Federal Reserve in 1921, all the recessions and depressions were allowed to liquidate themselves and go rather quickly. But we inflated massively after the Federal Reserve came in 1913 for the war. It makes it easy to go to war when you have the Federal Reserve. Then there had to be a correction in 1921. It went rapidly, the year was over. Nobody hardly even reads about it anymore. But in the 1930s, they did the opposite. Keep up the wages, keep up the prices, and we had a farm economy, much more so then than now. And the prices were going down, and the farmers were poor, and they had trouble paying their bills because of the predictable events of the inflationary climate. So what did our government do? They wanted to keep prices of the farm products up, so they had money to pay their bills and buy more tractors. Well, that didn't happen. The prices wanted to go down because it was in the correction phase. So our government then went and decided, well, maybe if we had less supplies, the prices would go up. So here we have a country suffering from a depression, people starving in the streets, so our government says, plow your crops under. I don't think we've advanced a whole lot further than that right now. When you think about the cash for clunkers, what are you doing? You're taking cars away from the poor people that might be able to buy them. And it turns out that most of the cars that were trashed were American cars, and they all ended up buying foreign cars. Makes no sense. I would say that we, as a people, dealing with our own money, can do a much better job. But right now, the atmosphere in Washington isn't such that that's going to happen. It is changing in the country. I believe there is a sentiment showing that there's a large number of people who are just tired of it. Not only the people who work and want to work and take care of themselves and be responsible. Of course, they've had enough for a long time. But even the people who are on the receiving end are getting very, very concerned. Because I think more people are coming to the understanding that this is not sustainable. You can't run up the national debt of nearly $2 trillion every year and keep printing the money. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. And yet, Washington is oblivious to this. And I think this vote last week, Saturday, means they're oblivious to it. Oh, it's only $1 trillion. Well, they doubled the money supply. Next year, the money supply is going to circulate. The prices are going to double. So the $1 trillion is going to be $2 trillion. The one thing for sure, every medical program the federal government has ever proposed, the cost has always been much, much higher. So I would expect the same thing to happen. But we have lost our confidence in dealing with our own economy, as well as allowing people to deal with their personal lives. And one thing that we could have done, though, with emergency, you say, well, you've done nothing. No, it wouldn't have been nothing. What we could have done was, cut taxes, get rid of regulations, quit inflating, all the good things. Even at that point where we don't have a budget balance, of all the hundreds of billions of dollars, the $700 billion here, the $500 billion here, the trillions of dollars divvied out by the Federal Reserve, what we could have done was, why couldn't we have just suspended at least the income tax? Say, okay, folks, go to work and you don't have to pay any taxes for the next 2 years. Bigger stimulus, and at the end of 2 years, believe me, I think the American people say, hey, this is a lot of fun, not paying taxes. The accountants might have a little problem with it, but no, I think that would have been a much better way of dealing with it. But instead, we're continuing the old process. We got into trouble because we spent too much, borrow too much,